Hey guys, it's Dan from Tour Overland. This year marks 70 years since one of the greatest journeys ever undertaken by Land Rover, the First Overland. In 1955, 6 young men set out from London in 2 Series 1 Land Rovers and drove all the way to Singapore. It was a journey of determination, discovery, and adventure, and has become a defining story in the world of overlanding. To celebrate the 70th anniversary, a very special gathering took place in London. Tim Slessor, one of the original team members, was invited to the Grenadier pub, but not suspecting anything untoward, he was met with a surprise. Just around the corner in Belgrave Square, more than 100 Land Rovers had assembled, waiting to pay tribute to the man and the expedition that inspired generations. After an emotional farewell with Tim, the convoy rolled out together, a living tribute to the First Overland. The destination was Henley and the headquarters of Bremont Watches. There we shared food, stories and talked to the team behind the Last Overland documentary, before enjoying music from none other than the Grenadier Guards. 70 years on, the First Overland still captures the spirit of adventure, and today its legacy continues to bring people and Land Rovers together. As Tim rolled up, he was being driven by Alex Bescoby in a replica of Oxford, one of the Series 1 Land Rovers that took Tim and Alex halfway across the world.
Mentioned that he was quite proud of what he did 70 years ago, but his daughter corrected him to say, "As you know, you're bloody conceited." So thank you from the Last Overland team for this. This is absolutely mad. We'll never see a gathering like this again. So thank you, and thank you to the staff for turning up. I know you had lots of plans this morning, but I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Tim.
But before we go any further, how about we take a little dive into the archives and hear what Tim has to say himself when he was a little bit younger.
I fancied myself as a bit of a writer, though I really hadn't got much experience. But I had done my national service in the Far East and knew a bit about those parts. So we were a sort of polyglot bunch. I think 4 out of the 6 of us had done our national service. We weren't in any way qualified. I don't know how one would qualify anyway, but the arrogance of youth, we reckoned we could do it. We reckoned we could do it if anybody could do it. We went to the Rover company and we said, look, how about a couple of Land Rovers? And amazingly, they came through. And once we had the BBC and the Land Rovers, then all kinds of other sponsors came in. We had 83, I think, sponsors, ranging from the Land Rovers to the makers of whiskey. We'd put 6 to 8 months' work into the gestation of the thing, and now I suppose if there was a moment of birth, it was actually going aboard the aircraft at Lymm Airfield in Kent. There was some excitement, we felt at last we are really on our way, we're no longer just talking about it. This is it, this was a sort of moment of truth, and as the aircraft lifted off and one saw the fields of England sort of disappearing under the wing and then the channel, yes, it was a moment of mild excitement, I think. I think I was the only smoker, and I was given quite a lot of cigarettes by one or other of the manufacturers. The cigarettes were very useful to give to border guards and people who, just might be able to ease our passage a little bit. We drove down this newish autobahn from the north of Yugoslavia down to Belgrade, and we might have passed 20 vehicles in 200-300 miles. There was a bit of a joke within the 6 of us that we were quite frequently saying, well, this is the last meal before we leave civilization, but I mean, there's blatantly incorrect. I mean, we in some ways we were moving into civilization when one goes into the Middle East. We were diverting, of course, to go and see sites and film different places along the way, Crusader castles at Baalbek, many, many other things of that kind. So we had a program sort of which we were stitching together to enhance the film that we were making for the BBC. One's concerns were immediate. How far is it to the next place? What's the fuel situation? We've got enough water. Let's find a decent campsite for the night. Rather than, as one might wish, the sort of broadly philosophic, which really didn't concern us too much. When we're in the countryside, when we're out on the desert or near desert, we would camp just by the side of the road. And it was cold. I remember it was quite cold at night. One of the problems that we sometimes had, a small problem, was where did we stay the night? And we were in Darjeeling and we were wondering this when we saw a likely looking tea planter. So we cozied up to him and he suggested we stay the night with he and his wife in their home on the tea plantation a little way out of Darjeeling. To get there, we had to cross a bridge, and the bridge was made, it said on the notice, maximum load 10 loaded ponies. We calculated that the weight of a Land Rover was about the same as, perhaps slightly less than 10 loaded ponies. What we hadn't really worked out was that the ponies would have been going in single file, so that the weight at any one point would not have been very significant. We could see the weight of the Land Rover as it moved across the suspension. It actually, from being a curved suspension, it became an angle, with the Land Rover making the angle as it inched slowly across. One of the problems was the driver didn't know whether to do it at speed to get across before the bridge broke, or to do it slowly, easily, gently, to give the bridge every chance. The most significant reason was the difficulty of crossing from India into Burma. There were no roads before the war. However, during the war, there was at least one road built, the Lido Road, sometimes known as the Stillwell Road, because General Vinegar Joe Stillwell, an American, was the boss, basically so that he could get supplies into northern Burma to fight the Japanese, and also, more significantly perhaps, to get supplies into southern China, that he could reinforce Chiang Kai-shek, the Chinese nationalists who were fighting the Japanese. This was the most expensive road ever built, probably still is. It cost millions of dollars a mile, through this very, very difficult country. But in 1945, at the end of the war, there was no economic raison d'etre for that road, and so it was totally abandoned. And by the time we got to it, you see, which was 10 years later, it had gone back to the jungle. One could just see in places the trace, and we were able to follow the trace. It was the Rubicon. If we could succeed, we'd crack the first great problem geographically of getting to Singapore. As far as wildlife was concerned, there are snakes, of course, in Burma, and some quite deadly ones, but I don't know that they go swimming. The second step was to only send one vehicle in at a time, so that the first one went in and gurgle, it could be pulled back by the one still on the bank and tried out and try again. Going down Malaya, the roads were excellent. It was the first time I'd really been on really excellent roads, almost since Western Europe. And certainly crossing the causeway was a significant moment, and we knew it because we had it made. Another hour and we'd be into downtown Singapore and finished. We'd run out of road, so to speak. We'd achieved what we set out to do so many months before. As we came across the causeway, we engaged in a little bit of stupid dueling to see which car would be first across. It's been done very seldom since, and in fact, since about 3 years after we did it, nobody's done it, and you couldn't begin to do it today. I mean, think of the political problems of Syria, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, Baluchistan, so that means the Middle East out. The road from India into Burma, the Lido Road, that's completely gone. The only part of the journey which would be much easier is from southern Thailand into Malaya, where now I gather there's a super highway with tourist buses going backwards and forwards.
Once we got to the Bremont headquarters, got a chance to mingle, meet loads of Land Rover owners, and I thought I'd come a long way coming from South Devon, but no. There's some people coming all the way from the Netherlands, Germany, and even Italy, which is quite impressive, and just shows the pull and how important this story of the First Overland is to people around the world. Next up, we heard from Alex Bescoby. I want to apologise in advance for the audio for these recordings. It was very windy. I did my best, but anyway, enjoy.
Thank you, Davide. Thank you for having us in your beautiful home here in Henley. I should start with an apology. I'm sure it's a great way to start the speech. I apologise to those who saw me turning up in the Ford Focus. You'll be happy to know the Land Rover I was in broke down. Something beautiful about that, isn't there? I also have an apology from the main man of today, Tim Slessor. For those of you who stuck down the news with a surprise, thank you for keeping that surprise. It blew them away, and his family sort of intervened and said, I think you've had enough. And there were tears in Oxford from both of us. As he said, I don't know if you could hear him, but he said that there were two great moments involved with the First Overland. Number one was when they arrived in Singapore. The second one was today, which is not bad, 70 years old. So thank you. You made an old man very happy. So after I've done my apologies, I'm just going to do a few thank yous. First of all, to Davide, Claire, and all the Bremont team for having us here. There's only one brand you can call up with about 3 weeks saying, hey, I'm bringing 600 friends down. You have room for them on a Sunday. And they say yes. It was the same yes they said when I wandered into their offices just over 5 years ago and said, hey, we've got this mad idea to take an 87-year-old man halfway around the world in a 70-year-old Land Rover. And they also said, brilliant, that sounds like a great idea. So thank you very much for having my back. The Gurkha Welfare Trust, you're going to hear from shortly. You guys have already raised thousands of pounds for an amazing charity who we actually raised money for back in the Last Overland. It's lovely simple. Just like being here, you've done a good thing today, so thank you. If you feel like giving more, we'll come to that in a moment. Matt and the band of the Grenadier Guards. Many years ago, big round of applause. I know you're probably cooking because you're sat right in the sun. But Matt, like 5 years ago, sent me a message saying, hey, if you ever need, I enjoyed the show, if you ever need the band of the Grenadier Guards, give me a call. I don't think he expected me 5 years later to actually answer the message and say, hey, he's still available. But he was, and you absolutely made his day. So thank you so much. To James and Land Rover London President. Land Rover London, you think it's this massive organising committee, the man who manages to huge amount of applause. We're going to hear from him in a moment. He does this purely for love. And he blocks up West London sort of once a quarter. I have no idea how he hasn't been arrested. But it's amazing what you film, man. Really, really appreciate it. It's so wonderful to partner up. I think my final apology, unless I've forgotten anything, is to all of you guys. You answered the call. The mission was to make an old man very happy, and you achieved it. He was absolutely blown away. You had no idea that the effect this was having. All of you who signed the passenger book, I'm going to leave it here in the studio. None of you know about it. It's this wonderful book that we left in the Grenadier for the last 3 months. And it's been filled with messages from all over the world, from New Zealand, Canada, Fiji. A guy who they picked up from Austria 70 years ago signed it, amazing. But it's a beautiful thing. It's going to be in here. I'm going to give it to Tim at the end of the day. So to you, thank you. I know you're an old friend. There were some of you here who were at Folkestone, waiting for us to come in the lashing rain in December 2019. Some of you may be baffled to just turn up for the first time. What the hell is going on? But thank you. And I think to give something back, I'd say once a week for the last 5 years, I've had an email from somewhere around the world saying, "Where's the show? How do we watch it?" I'm delighted that as of 2 o'clock today, it is going free online worldwide on Free Documentary. You'll be getting an email afterwards. Share it with your mates. You can watch it as many times as you want. Even if you watched it before. So a bit of a gift backwards. Finally, I've released it from the corporate titans who had hold of it. I should say that what is the First Overland about? First Overland to me was a story that I read when I was a kid. I mean, show of hands. Anybody who read it when they were younger? Made a big impression on them. And it's something that grips you when you read it. And I know that many of you have already driven across the world. There are friends here who've been inspired by that book and driven across. I've had so many messages from people around the world. But I hope there's someone standing in this crowd in 10 years from now who gives me a call from Singapore saying they've just done it too. And they've dodged whatever war is going on at the time to get there. Because I think what the First Overland is for me is adventure for adventure's sake. There's no great purpose, there's no sort of hidden deed, it's just to go off and enjoy. And I think that's absolutely wonderful, because overlanding reminds me of some simple truths, that the world is friendlier than we think, it's smaller than we imagine, and that we have more in common than we're made to believe. And by getting in a little car and driving around the world, I guarantee you will find the same. And I'll end on this by saying a great piece of advice from Mr. Slessor himself, which is, life is short. You're only here once. You better see as much of the globe as you bloody well can. So if you're dreaming of an adventure, if not now, then when? Thank you very much. Going back to the Gurkha Welfare Trust, we visited the Pokhara camp, the barracks there. We stayed with the Gurkhas. We cooked dinner by the Gurkhas, absolutely amazing. And then they asked us to join the final selection trial, which is the Doko Run. If any of you know what the Gurkhas, it's obviously the toughest selection in the world, which is running up a mountain with several kilograms of sand on your back in a wicker basket. And I'd say the second most spectacular sight was Marcus galloping up a hill in unfortunately massively in front of me. He's got very long legs. But it was fun.
Next question is quite a good one, I think. Was there a moment when you felt in real danger? Yeah, I think that's probably relatively straightforward to answer. Is when we were in northeast India and two lots of villagers kind of decided they really didn't like each other and started burning each other's villages down, and the road was shut and we were stuck there. We weren't directly involved, but when there are lots of people with guns around and serious discussions like that, finding a way through is little heroism.
I would say Istanbul Formula 1 track. Probably with no. Well, try driving a Series 1 with no brakes around the Formula 1 track in Istanbul. We did it in, I think Lewis Hamilton can do it in 60 seconds. We did 4.5 minutes. Which is a win if you're driving as we went past. There was a Land Rover ambulance behind us. It was amazing.
Very good. And they say, I think the Land Rover is the car that's been most seen by the developing world. So the other question is, how do people react when they saw the Land Rover driving through their town or village? Most people were very confused, I would say. I mean, the reality is that there are incredible Land Rover communities in some places, and in other places it looks like a heap of junk. So, so it really depends where you are.
Talking about 2 months then? Yeah, we're going to talk about 2 months then. No, it was amazing. I think the best bit was remembering, obviously, that talking about impact, this whole day has been about proving to Tim what an impact that journey had. But 70 years on, people remember it. And in Southeast Asia, all the way through Malaysia, Thailand, India, and then probably from Azerbaijan all the way home, people were turning up. It was incredible. We got met on the border between India and Myanmar with somebody carrying a first edition copy of the First Overland and asking if we could sign it. which was amazing. And I think that I don't think Tim really still appreciates what a ripple he had. So I think, I hope any of you who are grabbing the First Overland or the Last Overland that's on sale at the back, that one day, hopefully, it might inspire you or your kids to go and do something equally mad.
And a fellow drove 1,000 miles from Istanbul to the Georgia border just to meet us.
We've got two more questions, and the penultimate one is, what was the biggest logistical hurdle that you had to overcome in the journey?
Getting into China. Tibet and Xinjiang are not necessarily the easiest places to get into. And then, what was it, the 70th anniversary of the Communist Party of China? And then closing down all embassies and consulates made it uncertain whether we'd actually get home at all. So we managed to get through. It caused some delays, but yeah, that was tough.
Yeah, I think we made an executive decision to not tell anyone, and we sat in Nepal for almost 2 weeks, which is a lovely place. If you want to go and visit the Global Welfare Trust, but we decided to keep it secret between the two of us that we might have to turn around and go back to Singapore.
What's the plan B? There is no plan B.
There was no plan B. I think that's a good advice for life. So thank you very much for your questions.
And one final question. If you had to sum up the entire expedition in one word, what would it be?
Eye-opening? Is that too much?
I'm going to hyphenate as well. Beautifully mad.
Yeah, and we won't keep you any longer than you've already given up your entire Sunday to be here. And yeah, from myself, from Alex, from the Global Welfare Trust, from Bremont, from everyone basically, I think we can't thank all of you enough for making such a big effort to come here. It makes one man very happy. And of course, the going to be guards. They do take requests, so they'll be here all afternoon, guys. We'll try that. They said they'll be. Yeah. No, do take a look. It's very good. Thank you very much.
Thanks as always for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time guys, cheers!